What's up, family man? Welcome back. We're live from the Good Life Studios. I am your brother, Elder Ryan, or Brother Ryan, or just Ryan, whatever you want to call it, man. I'm here. We're back. Let's have another conversation. So, lately, man, this thought has been swimming around in my head. And I had a conversation with one of the brothers today here at the shop, man. Brother came in, and I just asked him for his opinion on it. I really wanted to get to understand this. Why is it that brothers have such a hard time committing to marriage, but we don't have a hard time moving in with our girlfriends? I don't know. I don't know what it's about. And it's been on my mind lately. The other night, Chriselle and I were having a conversation, and I had the observation that other than my best friend who I lived with in college, I've never lived with anybody else other than her outside of my immediate family. And it just made me think about what that would really be like for me to go from relationship to relationship, moving in and out of the same space, the same living situation with one woman with the next, and then having to do it again in the next relationship, and just realizing that my commitment to my wife now largely in part has to do with the fact that I don't want to do this again with anybody else. Like the amount of work that is taken, and mind you, I'm not saying that marriage is something that I don't enjoy. I enjoy being married to my wife. I enjoy being married to Chriselle. I love what we've created and what we're creating. God say the same. Coming up this June, we'll be celebrating 5 years of marriage. I'm excited about that. Those things are exciting to me, but this is also some of the hardest work that I've ever had to do in my life. And then it just made me think about it that even without being married, for those of us men who are going from relationship to relationship, and we're taking things very seriously to the point that we're living with our significant other, right? If I'm living with her, chances are we're sharing some financial responsibilities. If there are kids involved, we're more than likely helping each other care for one another's children. Undoubtedly, I just don't believe that you're in a relationship with somebody and you're living with them and you're not having sex. So let's just be honest, you're sleeping together, right? Like there are so many things you by the time you move in with your partner, you're more than likely acclimated with their family, right? With their friend group. That you're going on vacations, like you're doing everything that a married couple would do, minus get married. Why? And so I asked my man's when he came in and got his hair cut today. I was like, bro, what is it about that? Like, how is it that we can rationalize doing all of these serious things in our relationship, except doing the thing that makes these serious decisions actually make the most sense? And the conclusion we came to is that for whatever reason, men just feel as though they're not ready. Now, here it is. Here it is. This is what I want to do. Okay. This is what I want to do for us fellas. I want to help us get ready. One thing that I've committed to this year is being here and helping us work through all of the things that are hindering us from being our best selves. And one of those is the lack of commitment. Now I understand you're saying, Ryan, I've been with my girl for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. I'm faithful. I help put her through school. I did this, I did that. I don't do this. You're marking off all of these things on the list of what it looks like to be a good man to your woman, but you're not being a husband to a wife. You're jumping the gun. And what I want to do is stop and think for a moment and help us walk through this mindset that says I can do all the things that married people should be doing without being married. So let's think about this. All right. Now y'all know I'm a believer, I'm a preacher, I'm a Bible teacher. And so a lot of what I believe and a lot of what I talk about has a scriptural undertone to it, right? So let's just work through that. Understand that as we work through this framework, okay? If I'm going to enter a relationship with anyone, man, woman, romantic, non-romantic, however, who, because I know that more than men are just watching this, right? So even if for my sisters who are watching this, I want to give you some tips as well. Whoever I'm entering a relationship with, I have to be mindful of the fact that the seriousness of my relationship changes with the season, and depending on what where we are in our relationship depends on how much I'm going to commit to this relationship. When Chriselle and I were dating, right, and I'm going to use us for a case study. When Chriselle and I were dating, there were certain things that I had boundaries around because I wanted to make sure that I was saving something in my life, that I saved some part of me, some part of my ability as a man for the woman I was going to be married to. Not that I didn't believe I was going to marry Chriselle, but until we got married, there were just certain things that I wouldn't do, right? Like I wasn't going to pay a bill for Chriselle while we were dating. Not that I wouldn't help her with taking care of something, but I wasn't going to take on a consistent bill in her life because that wasn't my responsibility. My responsibility was to me, not to us, because technically there was no us, although we were dating. And I think that's the deal that we have to get in our minds. My mom told me this when I started getting a little bit older, and I started actually dating, not just having a girlfriend, but I started dating. She started to give me this understanding that until you're married, you're single. Like when we fill out paperwork at the for the driver's license, for any government paperwork, dating isn't on there. In a serious relationship, you can't check that box. The boxes that are on there that are officially recognized are single, married, widowed, divorced. That's it. Single, married, widowed, divorced. You're one of those. And if the government has enough sense to say, okay, we can't just recognize any and everybody just because they've been kicking it together. They've been kicking it for 6 months. They've been kicking it for 12 months. They in a situationship. If the government is smart enough, and we know that right now the government isn't making the best decisions, but if they've made a smart enough decision to recognize relationships a certain way, I would argue, where do they get this understanding from? They got it from scripture. They got it from scripture. No, you're not going to show me anywhere in scripture where you see that someone dating or someone courting, or whatever term you want to use, is viewed as the same as being married. We see single people, we see married people. We see divorced people, we see widowed people. We see all of these in scripture, and that's not to say that I'm dishonoring your relationship. This is for me to say to you, understand the lens by which you're looking at your relationship, because you're potentially giving more to a relationship than the time is actually requiring. You don't want to give too much too soon, otherwise you won't have anything to give on the back end. If I had already taken over doing all of these things for Chriselle, or for any woman for that matter that I had dated, I would have put on me an unnecessary responsibility to take care of someone else's home when I needed to establish one for myself. Brothers, until you're able to establish a home for yourself and take care of a home for yourself, trying to bring someone else in and take care of them, whether they live there or not, even if you and your girlfriend don't live together, but you're paying bills together, you got a cell phone together, you got internet together, y'all, you put a car in her name, or she put a car in your name, or whatever the case, whatever it is, right? As soon as you start crossing these lines that start to blend the real life responsibilities of adulthood with another person, now you're starting to cross into an area where you're saying, this person is technically my family. Because up until I got married, the only people I felt responsible for financially, other than myself, were the people with my last name, the people who share my family name. If your last name wasn't Hardgraves, Simon, Joyner, Lincoln, somewhere along that line, I didn't feel financially responsible to you. And once Chriselle took my last name, I'm financially responsible to her. There's now a boundary that she's entered in. She didn't cross it, that she's entered now, where I say, okay, I now feel responsible to her because now she's taking on the responsibility of carrying on my family legacy. Many of us are creating legacies with people who aren't committed to the legacy. And this is the problem, because now 18 months, 2 years, 2.5 years down the line, because we haven't made the ultimate commitment to one another. When things get tough, when things get rough, we don't have anything holding us to our commitment to say, hold on, no matter what, through sickness and through health, the richer or poor, for better or for worse, we're going to make this work. All we really got is a handshake deal, and we're taking advantage of the opportunity. I don't really know how else to put it. Now, we need to make boundaries. That's one. We need to make some boundaries. What am I willing to do? What am I not willing to do? That's the first thing we got to do when we start really getting serious about relationships. Not just you going on a date here or there, you want to get to know this person, but no, you're saying, I'm serious about this person. I think this person is potentially I want to build a life with, and I want to go forward. Okay, how do we stop ourselves from ending up in situations where breakups feel like divorces? Because that's what eventually starts happening. Every time you break up and your girlfriend moves out or you move out, you're basically going through a divorce. Emotionally, spiritually, you're going through a divorce and you don't even realize it. And that's why so many of us on the internet are, this is why we're seeing so many people on the internet now who are so bitter towards their past relationships because they put so much into them without an actual foundation of commitment, i.e., marriage. Therefore, now they're stained in their understanding of what true healthy relationships are because they had boundaries that they didn't know they had. And because they didn't know they had them, they were easily crossed, and now they feel betrayed by relationships instead of fulfilled. All right, so one, if you want to avoid these unknown divorces that we're going through, these unrecognized divorces, we got to be able to start setting smart boundaries, and we do that by saying, how far am I willing to go for someone who's not committed to my legacy? And this goes both ways. Fellas, you have to be concerned about this. To my sisters who are watching and listening, you also have to be concerned about this because you too have a legacy. If he's not committed to the legacy that you want to create for you and for your family, then maybe there are some things that you should not be putting on the table, making available to him. Bro, there are some things that you should not be making available to her. And I'm a kill this one right now. Sex should be at the top. Sex should be at the top. If this person isn't committed to the legacy of my family, then I shouldn't be doing anything that could potentially cause me to have one with them. All right, let me get off of that one. All right, number two, I really want to help us. All right, so we got to create boundaries. Number two, we got to communicate these things. All right. I think a lot of times what I'm seeing is that we're going into relationships and we're kind of talking about it, we're kind of beating around the bush, but we're not really doing the work necessary to communicate effectively. Not just that I said it, but what I said, you heard, and not only did you hear it audibly, but you understood it cognitively. I'm gonna say that again. All right. Not only did I say it, not only did you hear it, but you understood it cognitively. You heard me. We were in a position where you could actually hear what I was saying. You weren't distracted by Instagram, by TikTok, by X, by YouTube, by whatever the podcast. You weren't just no. We had a real moment where we had a real conversation. I heard you, you heard me, and we acknowledged by repeating to one another what we heard, and then we also reiterated how we understood it so that we could check for understanding between one another, right? And so that's just a simple communication loop that we all need to practice and continue to practice in our relationships, because once we get that loop down and we communicate the boundaries that we've established in step one, it makes it a whole lot easier for us to go forward in our relationship and move from just kind of knowing one another to knowing if we want to build something with each other. Because what I know is, and this is what I know, many of us have relationships with people, and we thought that we were committed to the same thing until it was time to put in work for that thing. Yeah, you thought y'all that just going on vacations was enough until you realize that the only time you two get along is when you're out of the country. I don't want to be in a relationship like that where I have to travel, 12 hours on a plane to some country where I don't speak the language just to get along with you. That's not what I want. I want to be able to be in the living room with you and us still get along. That's what I desire to have. But maybe you're not me, and you're not. Maybe you're not like me either, and that's okay. But I would just think that if you're going to decide to do life with a person, that I would at least want to communicate with them the things that I like and don't like and the things that I expect. as well. Because see, when we don't communicate expectations, we set ourselves up for disappointment. Anytime we don't communicate effectively our expectations, we set ourselves up immediately. Hear me out. We set ourselves up immediately for disappointment. Anytime an expectation is not communicated, disappointment is surely going to happen. And so right after we figure out what these boundaries are, we need to be able to communicate these expectations that we have of these boundaries and what it's going to take to fulfill these desires we have, the way we can prevent disappointments. Number three, and this probably needs to be at the top of the list, but number three, all right, we've created boundaries and now we've communicated them. Now we need to share with some people who we trust what it is we're hoping to do. We need community around our relationship. One of the things that I'm the most happy about the relationship that Carshell and I have is that our parents are involved in our relationships, in the sense that we have mentorship from them, and not just our natural parents but our spiritual parents as well. So from my mother and father, Carshell's mother and father, and then our pastor, and then our pastors. Okay, between the three couples, we have somewhere over a little over 100 years of marital experience. I'm trying to remember the exact number. It's right around 115 years almost. Something like that. 110, 115 years combined of marital experience, right? And when you take that much wisdom, experience, knowledge, and understanding, and you encapsulate yourself with it, anytime we're going through something in our relationship, we know that we have trusted voices that we can go to and say, hey, did you ever experience this? And if so, how did you deal with it? Because right now we're going through a little something, and I don't really want to go into all the detail, but I need to know, how do I handle this? How do I navigate this season of life? What should I expect coming up? When this happened, I don't know that this is going to happen in our relationship, but I know it happened in yours. And when it did, how did you all navigate that and communicate to each other and get over it and work through it? And you need someone who you can go to and learn how to model a healthy relationship. Mind you, I said a healthy relationship, a healthy marriage. Okay. I want someone around me. I want people to encapsulate me and to care for me and to cause me to be accountable to not only myself but to them and to my partner, and I want them to have a wealth of knowledge and information and experience that they can then share with me, so they can boost my maturity level the way I can be mature in the relationship from this point forward, right? So one, I want to identify my boundaries. Two, I want to communicate them effectively. Three, I want to encapsulate myself with a healthy couple. Four, and here it is, four, I I have to be able, you have to be able, we have to be able to walk back the mistakes that we make in our relationship and not hold them against our partner. I'm gonna let that one sit. We have to be able to apologize for the mistakes, put in a system and a plan of correction, follow through, and then not hold it against our partner. Scripture tells us that love is patient, love is kind, love holds no record of wrongdoing. All right. If I'm gonna have a healthy relationship with somebody, if I'm going to move to the place of where I start to believe I want to have this person move in with me and live with me, and I'm starting to realize, like, wait a minute, these are the signs of someone who I believe I can have a life with. And I jumped the gun. We move in together prematurely. We're not engaged. We're not married. We haven't gone through any type of premarital counseling. We haven't done the things to do this thing the right way. Fellas, you have to be big enough to say, hey, I love you. That hasn't changed. But what has changed is my understanding of the fact that I haven't been leading us well. And we jumped the gun. We moved too fast. Although nothing is wrong in our relationship, this isn't right. And either we need to have a hard conversation, or I just need to make a hard decision. And I guarantee you, especially if you love your woman, if you love your woman and you know that she loves you and she recognizes that you're making decisions with your future in mind and how you're going to move forward in life, and you're saying, I don't want to make decisions now that are going to prematurely expose us to experiences that we should be experiencing in the covenant of marriage. I don't want to cheat us out of a future. I don't want to cheat the experience of marriage, the process of marriage, the maturation of marriage. I don't want to cheat that. I want that because I want marriage to be forever. I'm only like for me, I'm only doing this one time, fellas. God forbid something happens and Chriselle and I are no longer together. God forbid. I'm not doing this again because marriage is so much of a it's so high on the pedestal for me, right? It's so important to me that I chose one person to do it with. I don't believe I'll do it again. If I I don't. I don't. And I never wanted to cheat myself or my partner out of the experience of doing marriage in its totality. And if I had, I would want to be able to say that I was big enough to walk back the mistake and say, hey, we shouldn't have done that. Let's walk this back. Some things you can't undo, but some things you can put boundaries around. You can rectify. You can say, hey, we got to stop doing this until we get married. That may include sex. That may include living together. Financially, I'm not going to tell you how to handle your money, but you may want to make some decisions about how you do things, how you move, what you do with one another, who pays what, all that kind of stuff. You may want to start having those conversations because God forbid, the one time things don't go the way you think they're going to go and that person walks out, they walk out with access, control, and knowledge of the most intimate parts of you, and then they move on to the next, and we're left picking up pieces on our own. If that's not divorce, I don't know what is. And unfortunately, many of us, men and women alike, have gone through relationships and we've simulated marriage and we've misrepresented what we're doing with one another, to one another, and to ourselves. And because of it, we've experienced multiple divorces without ever realizing that we were actually perpetrating a marriage. Look, I hope that helps. I hope you understand. Again, one, we need to identify clearly what our boundaries are, what I'm willing to do and not do. Two, I need to be able to effectively communicate these to my partner and to myself. I have to communicate them effectively to myself first, but then secondly to my partner. Three, I want to get some godly people around me, some good examples around me who are going to help me live up to the standards that I want to live. And then four, I got to be big enough to say, hey, I messed up. Hey, I'm sorry. And look, we need to walk back some of these premature decisions we made so that we can make sure that if we are going to get married, we enter into marriage the right way. Look, I'm your brother. I love you. I hope that helps. Make sure you connect with me on all digital platforms, Instagram, uh, Facebook, YouTube. Type in Ryan David or Ryan Hardgraves. Either way, you should find me. I should pop up. Make sure you tap in with us. Get on our email list. Come make sure you're growing. This year, we're going to grow. Like I say all the time, if you don't know anything, know this, that I love you. All right. And every man should know that if you're going to live the good life, you got to put in the work. And until next time, I love you. Peace.